Okay, hello, and welcome to another episode of Inuka Africa. In today's episode, we're dealing with food security and GMOs, and we've got our guest from Kenya, Victor Odero, who is a research and development scientist, a food and industrial microbiologist, and is a security champion, food and nutritional security champion. Welcome, Victor. How are you, sir?
I'm fine, thank you.
Good,
I
good, good, good,
appreciate the input.
good. Just to kick off, Victor, would you be able to summarize the concept of food security for us so that our viewers understand what food security, what the industry is all about?
Food security is just all about the availability of food that is secure, that is safe, that is available, and is of the right quantity, the right nutrition, and also to the right target group that is desired for good health. That is the summary.
So it
Yeah, thank you.
deals with proper biological use of food and requiring diets that provides sufficient energy and essential
Sure.
nutrients, sorry, to people. Is that
Yeah,
it?
sure. That's true. That's
Yeah,
true.
yeah. Now, what is the state of food security in Africa?
Africa's food system are at crossroads as we speak. Then we have a lot of challenges and exogenous shocks that have really impacted Africa. It even includes the extreme weather events, climatic change, recurrent outbreak of pests and diseases, limited availability and adaptation of yield increasing technologies. All these have really exposed fragilities of Africa's food system, and it has really undermined the ability to meet the food demand on the surging population. So as even we speak, recently we can even check due to COVID-19 pandemic that passed and even the war at Ukraine, it really disrupted the supply chain for agricultural inputs, fuel, and even food. As we understand, fuel plays part and parcel in the distribution of food products in various parts of the country or the continent. So the state of food security in African continent is so worsening, with over even 20% of the continent's population, roughly we can say 257 million people, they are undernourished. So as we speak, what I can say is that Africa bears the heaviest burden of malnutrition. So while the African Union's Comprehensive African Agriculture Development Program, CADP, their biennial review report of around 2019-2020, it revealed that the Africa is not on track to meet its goal of ending poverty by 2025. But
Now,
around when this, yes, sure.
are you saying that
Okay, you
Africa
can
can't
do.
feed itself because I hear that Africa is the most arable land in the world? Is that saying that Africa can't feed itself? Is that what the situation is?
For now, Africa majorly relies on the import, and actually, due to the factors, the recurrent outbreak of pests and diseases, limited availability and adoption of yield increasing technologies, actually technology plays part and parcel a bigger role in the agri-tech industry. All these have really exposed a lot of fragilities in Africa's food system. As we can see, there's also a surging population in Africa. So this one has brought a lot of negative impact that has not enabled Africa to meet its demand in the required food system.
Okay, now, what are the interventions that are being uh, implemented to alleviate the situation?
Well, there are a lot of interventions that are going in place, like most of the organizations that are involved in agri-tech, like AGRA. These these institutions are now bringing in the farming technologies and also the pest control systems that are in a position to help us reduce the pest impacts on the available crops that have already been protected to secure the available population. Actually, there are some tested systematic models that have been demonstrated in agriculture transformation. So it is even possible to secure both the input and the output in the market system. These interventions, like improved agricultural regenerative agriculture, the improved fertilizer, and also other crop, the resistant crops that have been produced from the west, at least are in a position to adapt the environmental conditions that are already existing in Africa. Some research are undergoing to help us come up with the best fertilizers that can at least help improve the agricultural system. Just to mention but a few.
Yeah. Now, I hear you mention pest control as well. How big a threat
Yes.
are, uh, are various pests to our agricultural system? Is that do they have a big impact on the food output?
Pests, they have a bigger impact actually. Currently, if we check their impact on especially the crops that are less resistant to the available climatic conditions in Africa,
Mhm.
once they have been attacked by this pest, we are not in a position to retain even the single strains or the single, how can I put it, some of the best admired crop seeds that we need to retain for our future use. This is one way in which we have lost our traditional crops that were pest resistant. They were in a position even to accommodate or withstand the
Mhm.
longer post-handling processes that were even leading to the shortage of food. These traditional crops were even in a position to be stored for long, such that they could even serve a larger population. So, pest is one way or the other. These sensitive crops that we maybe in one way admire to even prolong our food system, they are
Mhm.
so sensitive to such pests, such that we can't retain and also we can't have them to store them in future. Two, pests and diseases have really have long-term effect to the crops that we currently sustain as an Africa.
Mhm.
So this pest, when once they have attacked these crops, they tend to produce some microorganisms that will tend to attack these crops, and they will stay in these crops for a long time, such that even during the harvest, some strains will not be deviated. So in such a way that these microorganisms will tend to even be moved from harvesting to processing. Even the processing techniques that we employ nowadays, some of these microorganisms will be in a position to be resistant such that they can stay to these crops up to from farm, from processing up to the table.
Yeah.
So in one way or the other, we end up experiencing some diseases that we don't know their origin, but we are not questioning what was the source of these types of microorganisms. Some are being brought by pests and rodents that we are not in a position to control at agricultural stage. So, in one or the other, it hasn't even saved your food security, but it has ended up impacting your health system as the
Okay.
consumer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sure.
Now, in terms of controlling this pandemic by the use of pesticides, how safe is it, and is
Yes.
that possible if you use pesticides on the
Yes,
ground?
it is in one way or the other it is safe, but also it needs the experts who are advising on the right concentration to be applied in these crops. So there has even the big organization like AGRA, they have introduced the awareness. First, you teach the mass population, the farmers, on what is efficient and what is effective for this pest control system. So these pesticides, they have their impacts on even the health of the crops and the health of the consumers and even the health of the agriculturalists, those who are technically involved in controlling or upbringing these crops. So the technical experts are advising you on the right concentration to use for your crop yield to be effective, the type of concentration to be used for the general health of your crop, the type of concentration to use for the health of this person, the person who is involved in the farming, because your health is so important, and also the contact time. That's the duration that this particular pest is supposed, this particular pesticide is supposed to take before a product is consumed. That one, I'm now talking about the final product during harvest
Mhm.
or after harvest. And also
Yes.
there's contact time that this pest is supposed to take for this product, these crops,
Mhm.
to for before it start being, before we start weeding, so that does not affect the farmer
Yeah.
process of growing, because
I
don't
lost
just
you.
put
I
it,
lost
you
you
have
a
to have.
bit there. I lost you a bit there for a while. I lost you a bit. I think we had connectivity problems. Now,
No,
yeah, if you mentioned AGRA, which I think is the Alliance for a Green Revolution, isn't it?
yes, sure.
What does AGRA stand for? Alliance for a Green Revolution Africa, in Africa? Is that it?
Sure.
Now that's part of the
That's true.
is that one of the security agencies for the African Union?
Yeah, it has really played a role in our food security as it is really monitored.
Mhm.
It has even improved our food system, the critical food system. It has one, as I've interacted in one way or the other, they're experts. They are really existing to majorly fulfill the vision where Africa can feed itself
Mhm.
and the world. And also it has transformed our agriculture from a solitary struggle for survival into a thriving business currently.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay. Now, what's the shortage of experts in Africa? Are there food security experts across all countries?
Come up again.
I'm talking about African countries, nations. Do they
Yes.
all have food security policies? And are there food security experts, enough adequate food security experts on the continent?
Yes, there's a lot of food security policies that have been put in place, but I can't say they are so effective because we have a lot of sectors of economies that maybe the governments are really checking on, and you may find agriculture maybe being the backbone of major some of the economies. They are not looked into with a lot of interest,
Mhm.
maybe because you see, like most of the African countries, the governments tend to rely on building a lot of infrastructure as compared to putting a lot of effort on agriculture. So you find the land, the arable lands that should be used in agricultural production, they have been put for the infrastructure building and constructions, so that we have small land that is available for agriculture. That's one thing that's affecting Africa. Though the policies have been put in place, like the reducing hunger and malnutrition policies, but now implementation is becoming an issue. It's becoming a real issue. Said that sometimes when there's a lot of industrial revolutions, a lot of industries that are being put in place based on the greenhouse effect, pollution, you end up having a land that is rendered useless due to the pollution and the contamination, because we have a lot of industries
Mhm.
and a lot of building infrastructures as compared to land set aside for agriculture specifically. That's one factor that is leading to low rate of African food system.
Okay, now in terms of bringing awareness, is the African Union bringing continental awareness to such challenges? And what's the response to that?
Specifically to food system.
Yeah, because you mentioned that it seems a lot of countries are not valuing the available arable land and are using it for industrial
Sure,
development instead. So
sure,
my
sure, sure.
question is, are there programs to bring awareness, such awareness to governments regarding this? Is the African Union driving any programs on this?
Yeah, actually, there's a lot of awareness that's being put, especially it is starting from the teaching or the public institution, the schools, where we have started implementing food security as a course and also as a policy that help the experts who are studying this particular course to understand the need of implementing it in our economy. Because being that Kenya is relying on agriculture as a backbone, being agriculture being the backbone, the government is also here to support us in improving this food system so that they are employing, they are building a lot of training institutions for agricultural based where they are improving the infrastructure to impart skills and knowledge to
Mhm.
the young agriculturalists so that they understand the reason or the major reason behind maintaining the African food system. And also having that skill, it will help them to transfer the skills to the farmers and to the field. And we have also, the government is working hand in hand with the agricultural societies and also the farmers so that they, before they go purchase any seed or any agricultural product, there are experts in each and every agricultural production institutions who first give you training, basic training, farming system, the pest control system, the
Mhm.
fertilizer and the manure use, and also tilling, weeding, those basic agricultural processes and procedures, so that you understand the stage at which where you can lose it, at which where we can have food loss and food loss. It begins from the farm across the distribution. We are
Mhm.
also teaching the farmers on the distribution of the food items so that food, when it comes to the farm, there are post-handling procedures that lead to food loss,
Mhm.
like the scrubbing, the washing, the transportation. If there is no enough storage facilities that is put in place, the farmers are made aware that the shelf life of a food product is going to be wasted. Actually, so they are encouraged to always transport the agricultural products, especially the horticultural and also the fragile products, in a well-controlled temperature condition so that they reach safe at the right temperature and also they're not wasted.
Mhm.
That is one way, and also they are being taught on how to handle the chemicals and the fertilizers to protect their health, protect the
Mhm.
health of the soil, and
Mhm.
also to protect the environment, and also for better upbringing of these crops.
Yeah. Now, obviously, you're talking about Kenya now. Is this widespread
Sure.
across the continent, or this is just something we find in Kenya in terms of
It has been
educating the people on the whole process and supply chain of the food
this
industry?
is something that is most of the African countries have employed.
Mhm.
And actually, most of the African countries, I think there was a summit, I can't remember, especially it was basically for climatic change and agriculture in Africa,
Mhm.
where there was some policies like the new food and nutrition security policy that was put in place for most of the African countries, which maybe in one way or the other, it was put in place to provide an overarching framework covering the multiple dimensions of food security and nutrition improvement. It was also purposefully developed to add value and
Mhm.
create an synergy. It was just to create the synergy to existing sectorial and other initiatives of government and partners. So we were bringing some private institutions, the farmers, the government, and the academia.
Mhm.
These parties came together and came up with policies that maybe should run across the Africa, but we were still stuck on the. This was just a paperwork, but now the implementation and the enforcement still becomes individuals' responsibility. But I can assure you, almost right now, it's at 40%. We are trying, in as much as it's been really a loophole in creating this awareness and also improving the mechanization to avoid the food loss and food waste.
So the awareness program is a continental effort, is it?
Yeah, sure. The awareness program is a continental effort, and I can assure you that food and agriculture is becoming a major point of focus in Africa, and that's why it was given a major weight as one of the backbone of the economies in major African countries.
Now, in terms of the farming system in Africa that you've seen, is it small farmers
Sure.
or farming is on a agriculture is on a commercial scale, on a large commercial scale? What kind of scenario can you paint for us in terms of farming?
Most of it is of small scale. Yeah, most of it is small scale. As I've just told you, from my experience and from my interaction with fellow food security technocrats in Africa, I can assure you that the most of the government and also the top management officials in our governments in Africa, they really prefer building a lot of infrastructure to take a lot of place, majoring on the road construction, the rental and the real estates, and the industrial growth as compared to agricultural inputs. So mostly you'll find that the government lands that were rendered that were left by the colonialists to be used in agricultural production,
Mhm.
most of the government officials have turned it to the forest areas such that no one is allowed and no crops are allowed to grow there apart from the trees. That one is not bad. It has really improved our climatic condition.
Mhm.
But now the real crop production has really been minimized to an extent that we even lack that large scale land to produce. So you find only that the private institutions maybe just purchase a simple smaller scale land, maybe for crop production, and I can say most of the farming system in sub-Saharan Africa that maybe they're trying to implement that really should be improving our crop production, maybe integrated farming system.
Mhm.
There nowadays, because there are a lot of trees that have been planted by the government, now we are introducing tree crop farming, maybe the mixed crop farming along those trees. There's also forest-based farming where there's a forest here and also you're start including some of the plants within the forest system because we really lack that large number of land. And also there's also highland perennial farming system whereby there is that no effort for government or any other people or investors to build large infrastructure like the rental in the highland. So we are really utilizing those highlands to include some crop system. At least is the only available space that we can include that farming system. So I think those are the ones that are really experienced so far, but there's really a big problem in that spacing. So majorly it is small scale.
Okay, now from what you're saying, it seems like there's a contradiction there, right? Because you're saying that
Yeah, sure.
governments have got policies in place to address the food security issue in Africa.
They have
But
policies,
at the
but no
same time, they're
implementation.
busy building infrastructure on agricultural land.
Yeah,
Is that not a
sure.
contradiction? Are they aware of the
They are
importance of food
aware.
security?
They are aware, but I think there's that neglect. You see, most of the things begin with the government of the day that you have in your nation. And if they have one mindset that we can only grow when we have bigger infrastructure, like the rental and the real estate, in which one or the other, maybe they are benefiting in a corrupt way. So that's what they will be practicing more, and they will be giving little attention. I can say the only attention that maybe the government is giving, or which is not even improved, is the production of fertilizers. That's why even they have more industries that even is imposing a lot of pollution to our arable land.
Mhm.
So these industries maybe they are being brought in place to produce the fertilizers. That in one way maybe is helping in the farmers in improving their crop yield. And
Mhm.
it's just small scale farmers in 80%. So you'll find mostly it's mixed farming that is in place. There's no specific crop that you can say we want to produce this as a large scale. Maybe the private institutions who have maybe borrowed land, but still they're using their own techniques that maybe will save the crops at that particular time. Is not a long-term solution. So government, they are in their mind, they know this is something that should be practiced, but maybe they neglect because they have other sources of the economy that they feel is benefiting them in one or the other, so that they have given little attention to this. But they are aware there are policies that are manipulated. It's only in paperwork, but implementation is at 30 or 20%.
Yeah. Now, how much food does Africa import, if you have an idea, compared to what they are producing? Do you know? Do you have an idea on that?
Uh, I can say, according recently, according to the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development,
Mhm.
Africa imported. That was around 2016, 2018. It
Mhm.
was estimated that Africa imported about 85% of its food from
About
outside the continent.
35%.
That was yes, that was amounting to about $35 billion, and it's expected even to reach 110 billion by 2025. So these products they are coming,
Mhm.
and it is the this Africa's import is skyrocketing actually, but is bringing a burden because you can't import more, and I don't know whether you understand my point. I don't know how to put it better.
So you're saying
I'll try my best to
Africa
try to describe it.
imports about 35% of its food.
85% of its food. That was around 2016, 2018.
It's 85% of its food we import, Africa imports.
Yes, yes, yes.
That's very dire. That sounds like dire because Africa has got arable land, and this leaves me wondering why import 85% of our food intake. What is the problem?
Yeah.
What's going on exactly?
So it is even expected that it will be reaching around $110 billion by 2025. And at the same time, actually, you can find that sub-Saharan Africans have recorded the highest rate of agricultural production growth of any region worked with, 2000.
Mhm.
So you can now start wondering how does these two trends balance out? Yeah.
Now, those should be alarm bells if you're saying Africa imports 85% of its food. And it's perplexing as
Yeah.
well, given that we've got the most arable land, so we believe, in the world. It means something is lacking somewhere along the line.
Yeah, it's just that I think the government has not given its effort much. They have
Mm.
just tried to rule out. They have just tried to give the way forward on how it should be implemented, but practical implementation is still low. Actually, if I can just elaborate a few of my understanding,
Mhm.
I think Africa has become a net importer of food and agricultural products, despite its vast agricultural potential.
Mhm.
It is so puzzling, actually. It's puzzling.
Yeah.
Using so if you even start even using the data that was there's some article I was reading last week. If you start checking the data that was
Mhm.
picked between 1960 to 2007, it explains the African food trade deficit since the mid 1970s.
Yeah.
So you will understand that the core finding of that is that the population growth was low and the
Mhm.
stagnating agricultural productivity, policy decision, weak institution and poor infrastructure are the main reason. The infrastructure in transportation and distribution. I hope you understand if I talk about the infrastructure.
Yeah,
I'm not talking about the government infrastructure.
yeah,
Yeah, they are majorly the curriculum, the policy distortion. These policies are in place, but they are being distorted. They are weak institutions. The institutions are there, but they are very weak in implementation. That's one
yeah,
reason.
yeah.
Agricultural productivity is so stagnating and low. Why? Because we have poor mechanization.
Hmm.
We have the land that is best that can produce enough products, but there's poor mechanization.
Hmm.
And also, the population is growing, it's surging day by day. That need to feed all the available products. So these products is even less that cannot even feed the existing population.
Yeah. So
So I can say,
when you talk about poor mechanization, to me that speaks that to the point that there may be a lack of investment in the agricultural sector, whether by governments or the private sector. Is that correct? Is that the
yeah,
situation?
poor adoption. Like if I talk about mechanization, right?
Mm,
We have the available machines and equipment that should be used in the
mm,
agricultural production.
mm.
But in one way or the other, you find they are being instead, I not even okay, we have less, but the only mechanization that's available is for industrial production as compared to agricultural production. That's how I can put it. Yeah. They
So
are really dwelling on the agricultural production.
so they're focusing more on processing the food more than the initial stages of
Production.
production.
That's exactly. And this food that is being processed is even not enough to feed the available population.
Okay, okay. Now, I come back again to the role of the African Union in terms of sensitizing governments and having a making
Mhm.
a concerted effort to drive food security in Africa. Do you think the African Union is playing a sufficient role in that aspect?
Uh, AU they have tried, but I think I'll still even talk about the implementation because they are trying to coordinate the food. We have even the agriculture and food security division
Mm,
in each and every governmental department
mm,
that are in put place. They also coordinate with this African Union, but the decision, you see, the implementation may come in place. I mean, the decision may come from the AU and also the government technocrats.
mhm.
But at the end of the day, if the implementation is not put in place and the enforcement, it will still fail. Yes, they are playing part, but it is just coordinating the implementation of four continental initiative. Like how can I put it? I don't know the better word to put that, but let me think about it. Then I'll find
Okay,
a better
okay,
word to put it because
okay. Coming back to this issue of food imports, you're saying Africa imports
food.
85, you said Africa imports 85% of its food consumption. Now,
Yeah,
how do African food security scientists monitor and evaluate what's imported to make sure that it's safe for consumption by Africans? Is there a process or they don't even evaluate and assess what's imported? All food security is just about making sure that people are fed.
well, this mechanization. Okay, maybe a good reframe, like just to put it to a simple term, maybe I understand you well.
What I'm asking, I don't know if you can hear me clearly,
Uh-huh.
there seems to be sound in the background, is you mentioned that we import 85% of our food consumption in Africa, right?
True.
Now,
Yeah.
when that food is imported into Africa, is there
Mhm.
some form, do food scientists in Africa assess what's imported to make sure it's safe for consumption?
Yeah. So as I just have now understood you.
Mm,
Now, during the import, we first check that the food is safe for the consumers and also the food handlers, those who are now receiving these products at the
Mhm.
far end. There are technical laboratories where the samples are being tested before they are being dispatched to different areas or different stores.
Mhm.
So samples are being taken, they are being tested for different chemicals because we understand the chemical and pesticides are part and parcel for the shelf life stability of this product for it to be stored for long.
Mhm.
So there's been tests for maximum residue limits. There are tests for some microorganisms, tests for pesticides. There are also tests for the moisture content because moisture play a major role in the shelf life or the storability of a product. So, and also there's also a test for GMO, whether these genetically modified crops are safe for the consumption before they are being dispatched to the consumers or, excuse me, for various stores. So
Mhm.
once these tests have been done, the technical experts who have done this test, some are going down to the farmers and also to the stations in charge. They start sensitizing, they start training them that this
Mhm.
product or this particular food product is meant for this purpose.
Mhm.
This is how to store it, and this is what is being composed of, especially for mixed multi-component products. This is how it should be stored, and this is how distribution techniques, and this is the temperature that it should be stored for it to last for long. And this is the impact of consuming such product if it is a GMO, and this is the type of population that it should be fed. So after creating this awareness, you'll be much aware of the type of product you're consuming and also the degree of degree of non-conformity to an extent that you should be knowing if I store it for this particular time, it will go to waste. Because
Mhm.
some of them are not so much stable because they have passed through a lot of processing before they've been brought to the nation. So some of them take short time, some of them can go for long based on the product or the components that we made for. Also, these are some of the checks that are being done also with the Kenya Bureau of Standards. We have the regulatory authority that once they have been received, they have been tested at the point of entry. They're
Mhm.
also being tested with the Kenya Bureau of Standards based on their food standards so
Mhm.
that we compare the two, understand that this one is now safe and the nutritional value is also assessed because it's part and parcel of food security. And also the shelf life, the entire shelf life.
Okay.
We assess that this food can take this type of duration so that before it go to waste and it can accommodate such a population.
Perfect. Now, you mentioned GMOs, genetically modified organisms, and
Sure, sure, sure.
I'm sure you're aware that GMOs have created a heated debate in Africa.
Yes, yes,
Now,
yes.
what are GMOs safe?
GMOs are very safe. They are just myths and misconceptions
Yeah.
that are coming as a result of GMOs due to ignorance or lack of understanding,
Mhm.
and being that genetically modified crops are green areas of research, majorly in African countries.
Mhm.
And the myths and misconceptions that are coming as a result of this, maybe people think that there will be a result of maybe cancer issues or what, but those are just myths and misconceptions. These are just taking a gene from one crop and
Mhm.
transferring to another crop, maybe for nutritional benefit,
Mhm.
for storageability purposes,
Mhm.
and also for storage and also shelf life stability, and also for it to grow, also to minimize that time period. We just need fast growing crops that can reduce the gap for food security and for reduce the food insecurity purposes. So
Yeah.
we also just it is also modified. The gene is modified so that it can withstand long processing. It can withstand the drought. It can be drought resistant. It
Mhm.
can also provide enough nutrients, and it can also have that capability of feeding the given population. It is just the scientists that have given it the right quantity of maybe chemicals where they're being engineered, and also it's just a crop of gene that has been taken from another crop. There's no much that has been manipulated there. So it has brought a lot of discussions, but me personally as an scientist, I can really approve GMOs are really saving our food system.
Now, what would you say are the advantages of GMOs? Let's say, just briefly, what are the advantages of GMOs?
Some of the advantages in a layman's language, maybe for your understanding,
Mhm.
they are more nutritious. Yeah, they have improved. There's an improvement of nutrient. If you take one gene from one crop, that is less one nutritional value, and you put it to another crop that is having more additional nutritional value. Then if you take it, you combine it, it will be having improved nutrients. That is one. There are also tastier foods that improve customers' acceptability and their consumption, at
Mhm.
least improve your taste and preference when it comes to a given food product. These GMOs are also disease and drought resistant because you have taken a gene from a crop that is able to withstand rain, drought, adverse weather conditions, and you have given it to a crop that could not be in a position to withstand drought and also pest-based areas.
Mhm.
So, based on being that Africa, we are facing a lot of environmental factors that results even to the lower crop production. Genetically modified crops are really saving and are really future in saving our food system. Also, this GMO, being that they are pest and drought resistant, another advantage being that there's less use of pesticides when you are growing them up and when you're also storing them. They have their inbuilt system that have been modified so that they can withstand longer storage capacity or longer storage period without directly using the pest. So we have reduced that gap where human being interact with the pesticide, a chemical,
Mhm.
a product interacting with the pesticide, and your storage house is also interacting with pesticide. So we have limited less use of the chemical for the consumption of the product, either direct or indirect. It has also increased the supply of food with reduced cost of longer shelf life.
Yeah.
It has a longer shelf life, so you can really distribute it even to the further remote areas
Mhm.
without getting it exhausted or wasted. And also, it has improved the faster growing of plants and animals due to improved gene. Yes.
And now, what are the disadvantages, would you say, of for GMOs?
Disadvantages. The disadvantages, I would say, maybe there might be some risk of outcrossing where the genes from GMO food pass into a wild plant and other animals.
Mhm.
You can end up coming up with a poisonous product, take the gene of a poisonous product, you transfer it, that gene, to a product that was meant for consumption, and it can lead to food poisoning. That is
Mhm.
now one area that where quality assurance is coming in well and performing the genetic engineering.
Mhm.
One also a negative impact on insect and other species because one, if you say it is a pest resistance,
Mhm.
and we understand that there are some insects that are helping these crops in germination.
Mhm.
So you will be eliminating this germination process, which we understand is very important in transferring the important plant features from one plant to another. So
Mhm.
if you have inhibited the germination, then you are not helping. So it has a negative impact because it reduces the capacity of an insect or other species to perform this germination and also the cross pollination. I mean, let me just repeat cross pollination, not germination. Sorry.
Yeah, I think
Then also this other.
that has been one of the biggest arguments for people who are anti-GMOs, that it
Yeah,
destroys
yeah, yeah, sure.
through cross-pollination biodiversity. It tends to destroy that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It has
Would-
destroyed biodiversity,
mm,
Actually, you'll find there's also reduction in that type of plant. You find that we are losing our traditional plants that were more resistant naturally without being genetically modified.
Yeah.
So that extinction,
Mm.
we are losing the cultural product. They are called, we call them the orphan crops.
Yeah.
These orphan crops that our grandmothers and grandfathers were using, they
Mhm.
were more resistant to the drought, they were more resistant to pests, they were so nutritious naturally without any chemicals used. We are becoming in a, they are out of existence. So we have lost that biodiversity. The genetically also engineered crops are very unstable.
Mhm.
If you can understand, there's no be understanding of the stability, because most of them, once you have transferred the genes of one plant with the good nutrients and another with the lower nutrients, you don't know whether you have also taken the gene of unstable crop to more stable crop. So some, when they are processed, they won't stay for long.
Yeah.
They won't stay for long.
Okay.
Another one factor that has also been unexpected, and it's also allergic reaction. People have allergy for different
Mhm.
types of crops. You may find someone is consuming this type of beef, another one is consuming this type of fish. But if you take one gene and for one product or one animal and you put to another one, there will be some allergic reaction
Mhm.
that may even lead to other health impacts. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, given the disadvantages that you've mentioned, does that
Yeah, sure.
not justify an anti-GMO movement in Africa, because it seems to be destroying the natural agricultural landscape through cross-pollination,
Uh,
etc., and altering, does it seems to alter the natural agricultural landscape through cross-pollination, as you say.
yeah, it has this product, it has these effects, but in one or the other,
Mm.
I can say GMO is a short-term strategy for reducing the hunger and the poverty in when it comes to food security. It should never be a long-term strategy, because in one or the other, it is an area that has heated the great debate. It's
Mhm.
a green gray area that
Yes.
diverse research has never been performed,
Mhm.
and it needs the sensitization and awareness training, so that you go to the common people, you tell them these are the advantages and disadvantages of consuming GMOs. We put the alert on the products packed, we write the GMO alert, we put the nutritional contents on this product, so that if you are allergic to this, you don't consume it, so that the choice becomes yours. But in one or the other, based on the climatic conditions and the immunity of Africa, we will find that the adoption of this GMO is becoming a strategy, a short-term strategy, without long-term effect of extending the food insecurity. It helps to cap the gap between the food security and the food insecurity. It helps to shorten, instead of looking the long-term strategy of tilling the land, or we wait for the crops to grow so that we have enough, but we can come up with this GMO to reduce that gap. It's just a short-term strategy to reduce the poverty. But you'll
Now,
find that, and
w-
as
w-
much as the disadvantages are much,
mm,
advantages are shorter, but they are more health curious, because they have been researched by the experts.
yeah. Now you say it's a
That
short-term.
is that
You, you say it's a short-term strategy, but it seems GMOs are
yes.
not going to go away anytime soon, and people are using
Yeah, that's
them.
why I was
People are
saying,
using them more and more. And as we've agreed that GMO seeds can actually alter permanently, I believe, the agricultural biodiversity of the
uh,
land.
I can
So,
say one week. Mhm.
so how can you say it's a short-term measure? Sorry, there's an echo. I don't know where the echo is
One,
coming from.
oh, there's a rain,
Okay.
a lot of rain here. That just started with thunderstorm. Yeah. What I can say, food security. it will continue to be in as much as we are trying to curb it. And one of our greatest ongoing development challenges we are putting in place is how to make this GMO strategy to work for us. So we not only need to provide food and nutrition for growing global population, but we also must do it in a face of mounting environmental challenges, of
mm,
which GMO might pose some environmental challenges and
mm,
also the crop growth challenges. But in one or the other, we're just trying to sensitize and put the awareness and also try to put the quality control procedures of exposing the consumers to this product so that we don't have larger health effects. It's just myths and misconceptions that have been put place, but I've never experienced a larger health impact that has become as a result of consuming this GMO. So it's just that fear, but a lot of research is in place to curb this and also to put it a longer term strategy because it is here to stay.
Now, there have been studies as well, scientific studies. Sorry, I'm getting a
Yeah,
lot of
sure, sure,
echo
sure. A
here.
lot of
There have been scientific studies. If I can give you, some say it's controversial. There was a study by Seralini and others in 2012, where rats were fed a diet containing a common type of GMO corn. I think it was the NK603, and trace levels of the herbicide Roundup developed tumors and organ damage. I understand that
sure, sure, sure.
research was retracted. Then there was another one which was done in 2014 by Bourne and others, where pigs were fed a GM diet and they had a higher incidence of stomach inflammation compared to pigs that were fed non-GM diet. So, in the light of this, does Africa have legislation and a regulatory framework on GMOs at a continental and possibly national level as well?
Africa has put place a lot of regulatory framework
Mhm,
for GMO foods that I think it will be of good use. Like one, as I've told you, is testing a product before exposing it to consumers.
mhm,
Also, creating awareness
mhm,
on the advantages and disadvantages of these GMOs,
mhm,
and as well trying to balance the nutritional contents based on whether it is allergic or non-allergic, and also the alert on the packaging materials when distributing these GMO materials, when packing them.
mhm,
There is that framework that has been pushed on the legislation that it must be written whether it's a GMO or non-GMO product.
mhm,
And also assessing the health population. We have health, the public health institutions that have taken the data on the, how can I put it? This has been technical. You take the data of the nutrition, there's the nutrition survey that has been done in different regions to understand the population, what they
mhm,
consume more. Like if you have understood that this region consume more of the carbohydrate and
mhm,
that's what they are able to produce, and this region they have been in a position to consume the proteins and also other parts of nutrients. Now that you'll be understanding that if they're in a position to consume carbohydrate in most of their lifetime, this is the type of product that they're consuming. So the supplies of GMO products related to such nutrients will be more on that region as compared to even vitamins, carbohydrates, or even the proteins or other nutrients. So they are going to area specific. You just understand that this population, this is what they like consuming. So if you are packing this type of GMO and we are transferring it to this given population, let's just understand that their major food crop that they consume has
mhm,
higher concentration or higher quantity of carbohydrates as compared to the protein. So let's not give them much protein of this product if in the real case they are vegetarians. So most of the GMO products that we want to supply to that particular area must be more of the veggies. and we have to write it whether it's a GMO product or not GMO, so that choice become yours, and all the populations are considered. So maybe those are one of the techniques, and also the Biosafety Act we have in place that also ensure that these policies and regulations are in place.
Okay, so food scientists work hand in hand with public health officials. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, now
We work hand in hand. Yeah, sure.
now, given what we've said, I also understand that GMOs are patented, right? Is that
Yeah,
correct?
sure. They're most.
Now, if
Yeah,
they're
sure. GMO
if
are patented.
if they're patented
Uh-huh.
as such,
Yeah, sure.
it means, in Africa we had this system where we would keep some crops from our current harvest for future planting. Now you have to
Sure.
go and buy seeds, let's say GMO seeds, in order to plant every time. Is that not creating some form of dependency or on whoever
Yes,
has trademarked that seed?
I think it creates, but to lower percentage. It creates to but lower percentage, unless I did get you clear.
Yeah, because now we're getting GMO seeds where people have to go and buy GMO seeds. And we know that there are companies that now own those seeds. And GMO
Sure.
seeds, it's not like they don't fit into old African practices where we would keep some seeds from a harvest so that we could plant them at some point in the future as well, right? Because you can't do that with GM crops, right? So you have to go back and buy the seeds every time, because it's not natural seeds. It's seeds that are being manufactured, right?
Mhm.
So is that not creating some form of dependence? Because now people have to go and buy every time they
Um,
want to plant crops, etc.
you can one thing you understand with this patent right of this GMO, they are short term, they are not for long. So they have been given that duration for that your patent right is expiring.
Mm-hmm.
So if it is based on the effectiveness or non-effectiveness, or may I request short, just 2 minutes break for washroom?
Okay, let me put this on hold. 2 minutes break. Okay, okay, I'll wait for you. You can go to the washroom. I'll wait for you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, yes. We were talking about this corporate control of seeds, and I'm aware
Yeah,
that,
sure. Like Monsanto.
yeah, I know that most corporations that own these seeds are not African. They're not in Africa. And my question is Africa not creating some form of dependency by opting for this GMO route, by buying those seeds? Because those seeds
Uh,
are patented, right?
as a- yeah, what I'm saying, the patent, it has not become so much in Africa. I think most of the European countries are the one who have maybe put it, pressure on that. But in Africa, it's for short time, for short duration. So I won't comment much about that. But what I know, it is going to create a lot of dependent on that. But in one or the other, it's also going to assist so that this patent rights also come with some regulations. It's also come with some regulatory framework
What kind
to
of what
protect.
kind of regulations do they come? So you're about to explain that, yeah, Karen.
Yeah. Like, For you to obtain this patent right, what I know, you must have passed the quality control procedures that are put in place
Mhm.
before this of your crop or seed is being passed to the consumer.
Mm.
So it's also a framework that is helping to protect our consumers from getting a product that is not able to be sustained in our food system for health purposes. So they have also been given these regulatory procedures to put in place for you to obtain or to sustain this your patent right. But what I understand, the little information I have, this patent right is for short duration, it
Mhm.
expires, and it's only based on whether you are putting in place the quality control procedures while selling this your GMO product to the consumers, and also while also give while also I mean also the awareness, type of awareness that you create for those who are buying this type of product. I may not have much to comment on the patent right, but that's a little information I may be having.
Yeah,
But yes, it's
because
going to create
why I'm saying this may create some form of dependency syndrome is we tend to agree that GMO seeds through
Mhm.
cross-pollination they
Mhm.
contaminate natural processes, natural systems of farming. There's that real danger. Now, if that
Yeah,
is
yeah,
so, if that is so, uh, it means the impact, GMO seeds impact uh, biodiversity. We've agreed on that, they impact
Mhm.
biodiversity, which means that in the long run, people will need to go back again to buy GMO seeds from these companies, one way or other,
Yeah.
because now they
Actually,
can't plant their natural seeds. You see,
what also I
and
want you to understand about
Karen,
oh,
Karen.
sorry. What I also want you to understand about this patent right, patenting the GMO companies don't seek plant patent of their plant and seeds
Mhm.
when it comes to patent right. They obtain that utility patent, not plant on seeds patent. Like
Meaning,
if I may now, like a different type of patent with more stringent requirement of description of the invention. Like you give us, you put the stringent requirement of your utility where this product or the seeds and product are being kept. So it's not for particular plant or seed, it's for that utility that retain this type of product. You put the stringent measures and requirements for these products before they are being dispatched. Because while patent rights, while plants, like, how can I put it? Plants that are discovered by chance or generated by crossbreeding oftentimes don't satisfy these requirements. Or any plant, they don't satisfy this requirement for patented. So even if you check if you compare to the utility patents, it has several advantage over plant patents. So most organizations are encouraged to go for utility patent,
mhm.
like entire utility that retain these plants and product, but not specific plant or seed utility patent. I don't know whether you are getting the difference.
Yeah, I'm following what you're saying. I'm following what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah. So the utility patent may cover inventions beyond the plants. For example, if a GMO involves integration of novel, like foreign DNA into the plant genome,
Mhm.
the uniquely designed DNA can also be protected by utility patent.
Okay.
Protected by utility patent. So that's why it won't bring a lot of extinction or elimination of other producers or other people from operating in the same GMO production or in any
Mm.
other way. Their products will be existing, but the utility in which they operate will prohibit that utility pattern will prohibit the replanting of seeds harvested from unlicensed areas or unlicensed plant.
Mm.
When you
Now,
check even the plant patents, it allowed the licenses to sexually reproduce indefinitely. Like it allows you to give a plant, to give a GMO plant that is not following the regulatory framework. But if you talk about utility, as long as it has been framed as GMO utility patent, you have to follow all the protocols of the quality control before it will. So it's much of the caution. There are a lot of caution that have been put in place.
Okay,
So it's even, in fact, the what I can say that utility patent provide better protection against infringement. Infringement is to say.
now I'm a small farmer in Kenya, or anywhere in Africa
Mhm.
for that matter. I go and
Okay.
buy GMO seeds to plant. Let's say it could be corn or whatever. I plant for a season that GMO crop. Now, the following planting season, will I be able on the same land to plant my natural seeds and they will flourish and thrive on that same land where I once planted the GMO seeds? Will natural crops flourish, or through cross-pollination they will not?
They may, but not to larger extent that is required.
What do you mean not to a large extent? They may, but not to a large extent. Because
Mhm.
this is part of the debate that's in Africa, that once you plant GMO seeds and your land is used to GMO
Mhm.
seeds, they destroy the
Yes.
survival chance of anything else that's natural to be planted there.
Well, you see, climatic condition vary. Climatic condition will vary, and environmental factors. Some of these, you see, this GMO, there are things that are engineered in lab. They are engineered in lab. They are not directly involved in the soil components and soil formation.
Mhm.
Maybe because if you talk about GMO, one of the advantage that there's less use of pesticide, which
Mhm.
means you shall have reduced the use of this chemical in the soil that you are going to grow this GMO product, right?
Mhm.
So even in as much as you are going to plant it, I don't think that is going to have much impact on your soil. Maybe environmentally, when it's now exposed, if it's not, if there are no quality control procedures to protect this product from harvesting to consumption, that's where we will be exposed to an environment where we have the genes scattered everywhere. This genes that was inherited from other plant, it is scattered to everywhere that will affect other crops
Mhm.
that are already growing. But on the soil level, I don't think it will have a factor because it will just take a smaller component of the soil component that is required for its growth. But when you are done with the harvesting of this GMO, based on the environmental and the climatic conditions, trust me, the environmental factors such as temperature, climate, the rain, the drought will wash away these genes that maybe someone may be having in mindset that they'll be still existing in this soil, or they
Yeah.
will waste the soil.
Mhm.
This soil will renew its originality and can still sustain other types
So
of crops.
you can then plant
But
something
yes,
natural. You can plant
correct
your other
very,
natural
very,
seeds.
very well, and it will still thrive. Yeah.
So you are saying that it's a myth. That argument is a myth. Then that GMO seeds permanently destroy.
There's a big, so yeah, there's just a fight against that because there are a lot of little scientists who understand how GM operate. There's little awareness. There's
Mhm.
little research and development.
Mhm.
There are little tests that have been put in place to prove whether it is right or wrong, but the little science that have been put in place at least will be able to explain. Only what we are lacking is that awareness and
Mhm.
implementation of the quality control procedures of handling these products in a safe way to protect our environment, to protect the insects, and also for cross pollination, and also to protect our health. That training after harvest or after dispatch is what is key.
So you are saying emphatically that GMO seeds have no ecological impact whatsoever or on other
They
natural
don't
crops.
they don't have unless after harvesting, of
Mhm,
which, as I've told you, those who are handling the GMOs, they have been well trained to understand this product. After we have harvested, there must be a control of handling this product from harvest through distribution,
mhm,
through the stores. From stores, we take some samples for the test to
mhm,
understand its storageability,
mhm.
shelf life, the food safety perspective, till consumption, and also we understand the nutritional concept. But
Okay.
if carelessly handled after the harvest, is when it can have environmental factors that may be posed to already growing or already harvested product. But during growth or from the soil level, little impacts or no.
And are farmers on the ground educated on this? Do they receive some education on this? Because they'll be buying these GMO seeds, isn't it? Do they receive
As
education
I've
on this?
just told you, they have little awareness because of less implementation on the creation of awareness and training. But private institutions are bringing this up with the government and also the academic institutions. They're also trying to give much effort to the training and development for the farmers to be aware on the type of product that they consume, the shelf life stability, the food safety risk, the nutritional content, the packaging techniques to reduce that environmental negative impact, and also the consumption, the type of people, the target group that are specifically meant to consume this. And also, you see, there are also people who have some health impacts.
Yeah,
The immunocompromised, they do not come into contact or consume such type of product that maybe can bring adverse health conditions.
yeah. My question specifically was that farmers on the ground in most
Yeah,
parts
there's
of
little
Africa,
education.
are they educated on the potential risk of genetically mixing GMO seeds with
There's
other natural crops? Are they educated
there's
on that? Do
little
they know?
awareness. Currently, it's when it's being brought up the awareness because, as you understand, Kenya, the government of Kenya, they decided to cut the barrier that was existing for the use of GMO, and the president lifted that ban, and we started receiving the new batch. Now, the major area that they realized that has never been put into place is understanding the test and the quality control of this product, the testing, and also educating the mass
Mhm.
so that we go away with the myths and misconception. So it had never been put in place before, and it's something that has now been put in place. Actually, there are a lot of people that have been put on the field to just train and also provide basic understanding of what GMO are, the advantage and disadvantage, and any other thing to be understood. So there's less education about, less training, and less understanding of that. So that's what currently the government and also the institutions that are concerned are currently working on when it comes to GMO food, because it's already existing, it is here. We can't do away with it because also we are food insecure. What we can only do is test these products, have that data,
Mhm.
bring it to the public, tell them this is the product, this
Mhm.
is storage, this is the nutritional content, this is how it should be stored, this is the
Mhm.
composition, these are the type of people who should consume it. Yeah. So those are the data that we are using now to train the farmers, the consumers, and other interested parties. The only challenge is that we have little scientists who are trained on this specific area. See that there's that mindset in Africa that agriculture is left for the poor. I
Mhm.
hope you understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, so people tend to go to their careers so that we have little scientists who majorly understand this, who can even teach people to understand the impacts of this particular product. That has also even delayed the research in this particular area, that exhaustive research that we need to protect ourselves and also to understand this.
Yeah. Now, are there any African
Yeah.
companies that are in GMO seed production? Do you know of any?
Um, I haven't researched to that, but I believe there are other private companies that are also in the same area dealing with the GMOs. That there must be private institutions, and I'm very sure that they're trying to put up the quality control protocols before they dispatch this product.
And none of the governments have thought of actually controlling this market in Africa, is it, of seed production, of GMO seed production? None of the African governments have thought of controlling that instead of leaving it to private corporations from outside
Uh,
of Africa.
as I told you, they have thought of it, but they have never implemented it fully on the
Yeah,
ground.
yeah.
They are just told you Africa is more paperwork when it comes to agriculture, and they have good policies structured
Mhm.
on the round table, but
Mhm.
practically on the ground,
Nothing.
implementation is still low.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, sure.
No, I appreciate that, Victor. And if we can just sum up our conversation in terms, how would you summarize what we've discussed as key takeaways in terms of food security and GMOs? If you could just sum up what we discussed in terms of environmental, health, and economic factors of what we've discussed so far regarding food security and GMOs.
In my perspective as a food scientist, I understand that we are still food insecure in Africa, and we really need a lot of effort for the government to come in place. We have a model called double helix model. Double helix model is an approach whereby you involve agricultural processing and agri-tech institutions. They come in place, they link up with the research and development academia, and also we also involve the regulatory authorities. So these three parties come in place. They start the agricultural processing, tell us their needs in the production, harvesting, handling techniques that they apply, and their mechanization techniques. The regulatory authorities come up with the quality control measures, the standards of the consumption, and also the food safety techniques that should be put in place during production, during processing, during packaging, during distribution to avoid post-harvest losses and waste. Then the government can come in providing the finance and also the capital for mechanization and also funding the research to help the scientists to come up with the measures that can help us to reduce this loss. So when these three parties come, we'll be having a safe production, secure, nutritious foods that have long shelf stability that will be able to serve our available surging population. So if these are put in place, we'll go ahead and have interested scientists who will be now understanding that this is an area of interest is because our food system is already compromised. They'll be having understanding and they'll develop that interest to start doing research, start studying such courses related to agriculture and food security, so that we have larger population of scientists who have well diverse knowledge on handling the products from the farm across the distribution and supply chain to the table. When we have these parties in place and we put active participation, we'll even understand that there's more need of creating awareness to the farmers. When we work hand in hand with the farmers, with the government, with the academia, we'll find a solution to our food system and also will reduce the food security to some larger percentage so that we have a better chance of surviving our population, keeping it healthy, keeping it safe, keeping everything nutritious, and also reduce a lot of money that is being used in treating and also doing for the imports or the exports of the products that were meant even to be produced and manufactured locally to retain our better food system.
Thank you so much, Victor, for that summary, and thank you for making yourself available for this discussion on food security and GMOs in Africa. I appreciate that. If we start getting some questions from viewers, I'll bring you in and get back to you to answer those as well. Thank you so much for your time,
No worries.
and have a good day.
I appreciate it.
Okay. Bye.